Hey everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. We're glad that you're here today. Normally you get Trevor and Bruce opening up the interview and the information, but today you get me, and here's why. Originally, I started as a client of workplaces. I had an electrical company with my husband, and the reason that we originally hired Bruce was to help us with our first major hire. We had a few employees at the time, and we were looking to hire our first journeyman, which is an expensive proposition. And you want to make sure that the next leader in your company that you're grooming to be the right-hand man to you is actually the right fit. And so that's where we brought Bruce in to help us. And really, I was not believing in the hiring system at the time.
She actually said, I'm full of crap. Yes.
I was not so kind because I was very direct back in the day and not politically correct. But yes, I called him full of crap. And so, Bruce, maybe you can talk to me about what we originally discussed and kind of what you brought to me at the time.
Absolutely.
And then I'll explain to everybody the questions that I had and the kind of thoughts that I had in the back end.
I remember the first conversation you, James, and I had, and the conversation was all around what do we do differently? And the first thing that came around was I said that at least an hour worth of interviewing, sometimes two, sometimes more. And I was like, are you kidding me? I've got no time to do that. Yeah. And I said, well, trust me. And that's when you actually said I was full of crap. Oh. But the premise, Jen, was we do it differently. And the reason we do it differently is because most people don't understand how to interview. Most business owners don't get the hiring right. And when they do hire or when they interview, it's all about my gut feel. It's all about this is a nice guy. This is a nice girl. I think they can work well on my team. I think that they fit. And although that's a good place to start, and we never want to abandon that because our gut and our instinct is so incredibly important, but unfortunately, it's maybe 5-10% of the equation to succeed. And as you correctly said, hiring someone, regardless of whether it's a journeyman or whether it's an executive role or whatever the hiring needs are, it is incredibly expensive, very pricey. And unfortunately, our business community doesn't necessarily see that on the P&L or profit and loss statement, right? It's hidden. And it's thousands upon thousands, starting from the most basic employee to a more sophisticated leadership type position.
So that's actually a great question. So that was one of the things I wasn't really aware of when we started is how much, can you tell them how much it actually costs for like an entry-level position, what that back end costs the company, and then up to an executive? Like what's the range of the real cost to a business in lost time, in implementation, in onboarding, and all of those things? And can you break that down for them?
Absolutely. So the range, and when I say a range, from the most basic employee to a more leadership, more senior role, anywhere as base costs, administrative costs, anywhere between $7,000 to $14,000.
Wow.
Right. So it's incredibly expensive. Now you said something as well. You spoke about the lost cost or lost opportunity costs, the training, the time. We're talking about anywhere between 50 to 150% of annual salary or annual compensation. So for hourly employees, just times that by 2,080 hours, and you'll get your annual amount. So we're looking at a lot of money that's lost. But when it comes to trying to explain to leaders and business owners, et cetera, that we need a little bit more time to do this process. And the time that it takes is quite a bit more than you would typically do. But if you remember this, I said, well, we've increased hiring accuracy by almost 95%. And again, you gave me the same look.
Like, you're full of it.
Exactly.
No, there's no way you get a 95% accuracy. I was actually very pointed.
Yes,
like,
you were.
No, there's no way you get 95%.
Yeah.
How do you get 90? And I'm going to backtrack a second here.
Sure.
So we'll go to the 95% in a second. Tell our watchers what it looks like to hire normally, the normal cost, what people normally put into it, like in construction or a standard office position or whatever, just like a normal traditional hiring method? What does
Yeah.
that look like? And then we'll go back to what makes the 95% work.
Yeah. The traditional or normal hiring method, as you stated, is typically, depending on position, anywhere between 20 minutes to 90 minutes. And mostly your entry-level positions, mid positions are no more than an hour on average.
And that's for the interview.
That's for the interview.
Okay.
Exactly.
And what kind of prep to the interview in a normal hiring?
Very little.
Okay.
When we typically do, or not we, but people in general, we get the resume. If we're lucky, some people don't even look at the resumes, right? But we get, and there's a reason being is because a lot of people doctor their resumes, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just not going to believe it, blah, 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 blah. But if the resume does come, do they have the experience that I'm looking for? Yes, they have the experience. I invite them to come in and meet them. And we have our 30 minutes, 60 minutes interview, whatever the case may be. The interview is primarily about technical skills. So tell me where you've had the opportunity to install flooring. Tell me when you've had the opportunity to build custom cabinetry before, whatever the case may be. And so they say it and they give the experience and everybody takes it on face value, right? It's they call it a gentleman's agreement, right? And the end of the interview is, how much are you expecting to get paid? And when can you start, assuming everything is good? The problem with that, again, is you've probably increased your chance of effectiveness by maybe another 5%, right? And it's just woefully inadequate. And this is why a good 80%, if not more, hiring attempts fail, is because that's all we put into it. So there is a far more potent and far more effective way to do it, but it takes a little bit more time and focus. But man alive, does it work? And I'm sure you can talk a little bit about that too.
Right.
Yeah.
So you told me this back in the day.
Yeah.
And I'm going, but it's worked. We have staff. It takes such a little amount of time and it's still, basically functional. I'm still have people hired. The business is still running. Like, why would I quadruple the amount of time that I'm taking in order to hire these new people? And you also suggest to do it with everybody you hire, not just the key people.
Absolutely.
For everything. And I'm
Yeah.
like, how do you invest that kind of time in when you're in a growing startup business under 10 employees where you're just scrambling all of the time? So that's a different discussion for a different day. But I'm thinking in my head, there's no way that this is that much better.
Yeah.
How could this be that much better? And then you drop the 95%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just rub it in.
And then I'm like, okay, wait, what?
Yeah.
And you said it with confidence.
Absolutely, because it never fails. Right?
Okay.
And that's the reason why I was so confident. But let's answer your first part of the question. For two reasons, and I'll talk about the secondary reason first and then go back to the primary reason. The secondary reason is retention. So we've gotten so used to seeing resumes with 6 months here and 8 months there and a year. And back in the day, and I say 20, 25 years ago, if it wasn't at least 3-4 years on average, you were a job hopper, right? But we've accepted that. So we bring these people in, and there's a reason why they're a job hopper, but we bring these people in, and unfortunately, they use your business as a stepping stone or a hopping stone, if you want to call it, right? And so the retention piece is a big deal because as we discussed, the huge investment that you make initially, when someone leaves after 6 months or even a year, especially small business, it's tremendously impactful to the business and not in a positive way. It's very damaging to the business. So it's actually far more critical for a small business to get this right than it is for a large corporation to get it right.
Isn't that funny?
Right. And so that's the retention component. And this program that we can talk about, or technique we're going to talk about, is there not to just find the right person, but also to keep them.
Yeah.
Right. The primary reason is that the amount of time and effort you have to place into the so-called expert you just hired is incredibly high. So you are essentially babysitting the person you thought that you had hired that could finally take this huge load off of my shoulders, and now I've got an expert in the field. How many times has the so-called expert ended up being a high maintenance project for you that person is just not working out the way that you expected them to work out, right?
And then you don't get to breathe again. And as the owners, we're like, why didn't this function? And why is it not working right?
Absolutely.
And why can I not sleep?
Right. So all that you've done, it's double trouble. You've added far more time onto actually making sure that this person works out. And the stats are pretty profound, like 8 to 9 out of 10 times it doesn't work out. Wow. And they're supposed to be the experts. But you tell me you've got 14 years of experience in X, right? But it doesn't work out that way. So why is the amount of time, doubling the time, quadrupling the time, if I can say that correctly, why is that so important? I wouldn't say it quadruples the time, but it certainly can double the time that you use and invest into doing this. The reason being is because all of the heartache that you experience when the person is not the right person, regardless of experience and technical skills, they're not fitting in, they're not engaging with what they need to engage in the way you need it done for your business. Because I can tell you right now that what makes someone successful in one business doesn't make them successful in another business.
Right.
So if that's not done, you've got performance issues. You're going to try and jump in to try and coach, to try and get this person to work. Most of the time it doesn't work because you're way too busy as a business owner. And then double whammy, they leave after 6 months, after all the work and the efforts you've put into them. And all of that can be avoided. The business owner that says, man, I'm hiring for an absolutely critical role. If I screw this up, this is a big deal. Mm-hmm. And what this system brings about is you are 95% assured that you're going to land the right person, that it's going to allow you to actually achieve what you want to achieve, that's taking the load off of your shoulders, and you finally have an adult in the room. And what's more, can you imagine if they ran their job like they owned it, like it was their own business?
That would be incredible.
I mean, that's huge for small business. So we've done this for years now, and it never fails. The question that you may be thinking about asking, and many of our viewers are probably asking as well, is, well, it's going to have to fail sometime, right? And they're absolutely right. It's going to fail, and the only reason why it fails is because the hiring manager or the person that's hiring is not engaged after the hire. So then we talk about onboarding. And a lot of people think, well, I've heard this onboarding thing. What is that? Is that the same as orientation? From an HR perspective, the boxes checked, the pieces of paper filled out, or today online forms filled in. Yes, that's orientation. But what is onboarding? Onboarding is there because the wind is in the new employee's sails. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful opportunity to absolutely rev that person up, get them engaged as soon as possible and productive as soon as possible. Why? Because if you spend anywhere between 10 to 20 grand over the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be, the first thing you want to do as a business owner is reach at least a break-even point.
Yeah, recover that cost.
How do you recover that cost? Well, you recover that cost by making sure that new employee, which is an asset, by the way, that asset becomes productive. So it's like buying an expensive piece of machinery, right? You're going to spend $250,000 for a new edge bander or for a new CNC machine. What do you want? Well, hopefully you want production to recover that cost very quickly. And if you do it correctly, it's the same thing. For an employee, a person is the only growing capital asset you have in your business. If you spend that amount of money and you realize that, you get them productive within a short period of time, that's what your onboarding is all about. It makes financial sense. So the system is very profound, very detailed, but man, it is incredibly helpful, incredibly effective.
So I've heard you say 95% successful.
Right.
Heard you say there's a system. We have to communicate about onboarding and what that actually looks like to get the whole thing working. I'm still, as a hiring person, going, you're full of crap, right? I'm hearing these things and the stats and the numbers and the what it can cost me, and I'm even more scared than when I walked into this meeting.
Right.
Right? So how I'm walking into this meeting, I'm already worried. We've gone through all of these things. I'm now more worried. Walk me through what it actually looks like for us to do the system with you. What does it mean, this system that we're talking about for hiring? And what are the stages of that process broken down so somebody can understand it?
Absolutely. So as I tell you this, there'll be some familiar components to it, but there's some nuances that I'll explain. So when we start any hiring process, we always look at the job. We personify the job. And what I mean by personify, if the job could talk, what would the job say it needs for superior performance? But Bruce, I'm looking for a person. Sure, you're looking for the person, but the job is there to serve the organization. The job is there to serve the company. And what is a company? A company is a system. So if a job is one of several cogs in that system, obviously you want to make sure that the job is clearly defined. And what we do is we build what we call as a job profile. And a job profile, similar to a job description, but far more practical, far more field orientated. And what I mean by that is a job description is a high level document that says, here are the duties of this position. Here's the reason for the position, a short little description, and here are your qualifications and all that type of stuff. A job profile complements and strengthens a job description. It talks about, we go through a little bit of a workshop, no more than about an hour, and we talk about things. Why does this position exist? What are the reasons for this role existing? How does it serve the business? We then extrapolate or extract key accountability statements out of that, responsible for to ensure this. So we're very clear about that. And then we go through something quite unique, because where we look at each one of these accountabilities. What are they from most important to least important? And then we assign time as a percentage to each one. How much time does it take, or typically would it take the person or incumbent in the job to actually take care of those various functions of those responsibilities? And why that's important is because, I'll give you an example. So we did, this was at least about 10 years ago now, for a construction company, finding a sheet metal fabrication technician, right? And you'd wonder, well, why is this important for a construction company? Well, it was all about exterior housing products, etc. And I remember the applicant saying to the hiring manager, asking, what is the most important part of this job? And the hiring manager said, lift equipment, pallet jack, forklift, blah, 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 blah. Guy gets very excited. His name was Russ, I remember that. Gets really excited. He takes out all his credentials and he shows the hiring manager and myself there. And he starts the job about a week later. And then about 3 weeks into that, he resigns. He says, it's not for me. And I remember speaking to him. I said, well, why did you resign? What's going on? And he says, well, you guys told me that the most important part was lift equipment, pallet jack. I enjoy the whole stuff, fabrication related stuff, but that was my key, that I wanted the job, the reason I wanted the job. And I said, well, it still is. And he said, well, you guys said it was like 10% of the time. I was only doing it 10% of the time, 10% of my time there in the business. And I said, yeah, and that's still the case. You're not going to be doing it more than 10% of your day or 10% of the time in your job. And he says, well, no, but I expected to do at least 50 to 60% of my day doing that kind of stuff. You said it was the most important. So what's most important is not necessarily an increased amount of time that you're actually going to be doing or working within that activity.
So you're basically trying to make a pie chart of the job and how much time you're spending on each of those components, and then also looking at the importance of the activities within that role and kind of putting it in a 1 to 10.
Absolutely. And the time that you spend in each accountability, we find that it's how people are motivated.
Okay.
So if I had to ask you, Jen, to sit in front of a computer doing data input all day long.
Kill me right now.
Exactly, right? But if I had to ask you, Jen, to go out and work on business development and go train people and build people, You do that all day, every day.
Right.
So the amount of time that you would spend in a position for Jen is so important. And that's that time that we determine at each accountability. So it's so important for us to build that job profile. Again, we're not thinking about the person. We can't think about the person, yet we only think about the job. But now the job has become the holy grail.
Okay.
And out of that job profile, we have an objective, quantifiable profile of the job. Doesn't just include the technical requirements of the job that most of us are obsessed with when we do interviewing and hiring. It's got to do with what kind of behaviors do we want to see from this individual. And an example of a behavior would be where a lot of managers get really annoyed and frustrated with their employees. Like, this Bruce guy shows no sense of urgency. He just sits at the back and just does his thing, right? And I don't know if I can keep him. Doesn't mean that Bruce is not showing a sense of urgency. It just means that from a behavioral standpoint, it's not coming out that explicitly.
It's not visible.
It's not visible. Thank you. The other thing is the motivation side of things. So the job needs to motivate in a way that gets people to be driven, gets the person in the job to be driven.
Because then I want to actually show up and do it every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And all of that forms, we want to look at the competencies. We want to look at the skills, the knowledge, the aptitude of people, right? But that job profile essentially is there to set the base. From that job profile, we then build a job posting. And I want to say this, a lot of people get confused between job descriptions and job posting. Even Indeed right now has a section where add your job description. It should actually be add your job posting. The difference between a description and a posting is an advertising, right? It's all about advertising. It's saying why I think this role would be good for you, Jen. Join my company, join my team.
It's sales.
It's sales.
Yeah.
Of course it is. So we got to tell people why we think that this job might be good for them. But we've also got to tell people what the practical reality is in this job. Don't just put a list of duties. Sell it. Talk about your culture. Talk about why this job exists. Why this is so beneficial is because it starts to attract the right people, the right candidates. A lot of business owners, leaders say to me, Bruce, I got this ton of applicants that just come through, and quite frankly, 90% of them are just a waste of time. Not
right.
personally, but the applicant, the resumes are just a waste of time. There's a reason for that, because you've put a standard posting, if you will. Everybody and their uncle and auntie are gonna apply for the role, right? So we put out a posting that is very specific, that is very engaging, dynamic. We get the right people, they come in, and we interview them. We interview them based not just on tell me about your technical skills, tell me about your experience, and whatever the case may be. We use what we call as a thematic-based interviewing system. And it looks at what the name suggests. It looks at the theme associated from the person, when they start their workout, whether it's 10 years ago or about 5 jobs back. And we look and we ask questions that are very specific in how this person makes decisions as they move along from one job to another job, et cetera, et cetera. And we find that there are very common themes. When we see those themes, we start to ask questions about those themes. And it gives us tremendous amount of information.
So, Bruce, you did a great job explaining the job posting.
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned the job description,
Mm-hmm.
and you said most people don't understand the difference.
Right.
So what is the difference, and what should be in a description that's not in a posting?
Right. So a job description is a high-level document that explains the job duties, explains the qualifications, the experience that an individual needs to have to satisfy this job. So it's a very high-level understanding of the job.
So is this like the skill set the person's going to need, that they're going to want that documentation when we onboard them? That's more the job description?
Yeah. And the job description, again, you can provide it to them through, when they just start, but it doesn't necessarily give you what's the day-to-day, right? What do we do? What kind of projects?
So it's more high level.
It's very high level,
okay,
right? The unfortunate part is that we're really connected to that document.
Right.
And we use that for hiring, and it's unfortunately the wrong way to go about doing it. Now, the other document is the posting. And the posting is not a job description. Sure, we source from the job description, but the posting is there. It's a sales tool. It's there to be structured in a way that attracts the right people. On Indeed, it talks about add your job description. I'd like it to preferably say add your job posting or your sales ad, for lack of a better word, right? And in this posting, it shouldn't be structured with you will be responsible for, or the job duties are as follows. That doesn't attract or delineate between the right and the wrong candidate. The job posting is there to talk about the company. What is the team? What are the people like that I'm going to be working with? What am I going to be responsible for? And what's going on in the company right now? What kind of projects are you working on? What's the first thing, a journeyman, as you mentioned earlier on, what's the first thing a good journeyman candidate would ask in an interview? Talk to me about the kind of jobs that you guys are doing.
Right.
Right.
So as a top talent person, I like to float my own boat a bit and say I'm awesome. But when I'm looking at postings or I'm looking for a job, I'm looking for the postings that look different, that they're not the same as everybody else. Absolutely. What are you doing that's different? That's not, so that I can bring something awesome to the table.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus somebody that's just looking for a job and, oh my gosh, I need money and I need a job and I'm bouncing or whatever. They're going to apply for anything they think they can do.
Yeah.
Versus somebody that's a higher caliber applicant is going to be looking for those specific cultural differences, what they're getting out of it. They are looking at it as a sales ad. Like, you got to sell yourself to me because I don't need you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Most A players, most top talent would definitely be in that bracket. They can get a job anywhere they want.
Right. So that's what makes the posting so important.
Absolutely.
And why doing the role first. Okay. So we've got the role built. We've done a really good posting. We understand the difference between the description. That's not going on Indeed. Throw that for later, right? So now we have the posting, we have the role. What's our next step if we're doing this? So we've spent all this time building these things with you. Now what? Are we actually going to get a person now?
Not yet, Jen. Not yet.
Just wait. Okay.
Hold tight. More is coming. So we then get candidates, of course, from our posting, right? The right candidates. What we do is we do a screening, phone screening. So we give people a quick call, no more than 10, 15 minutes. Right?
And am I calling everybody that I get interviewed?
No,
okay,
not at
so
all.
how do I
Not
even begin to look at the 100 resumes I've just got?
Well, it depends on the relative part of that question. If you're working on Indeed, seeing that we're talking about Indeed, Indeed for president, but we're talking about Indeed. Indeed provides you with some great screening questions, right? Okay. So that by itself is gonna take people out. When going through the resume, there's some key screening criteria that you look at a resume and say that's not the right person. But when it comes to the actual phone call, the screening phone call that you make, which top 10 candidates, give them a call. We've got a specific screening technique and tool that gives you, it really tightens up the top 3 or the top 4. Once we've done that, we send them what we call as a person profile assessment. And this person profile assessment, remember the job profile we built earlier on? Mm-hmm. We compare the person to what the job profile requires, if the job could speak.
So this is job profile, person.
Correct.
And we're trying to match them.
And we are matching them, right?
Like a glove.
Like a glove.
Okay.
And we're looking at their behaviors. We're looking at how they're motivated and the competencies that they have. And the system actually says, this is where you're going to get far with this individual. This is where you're going to have a struggle, right? So we've got a very informed way of saying, is this person the right person we need to put in front of this client or this leader or this business owner? So at that point in itself, and we've done the screening phone call, we're extremely confident that you're not only going to get your top 3 or top 4 candidates, You're going to have incredible interviews and discussions with these people. It's going to make it really hard to discern between who am I going to hire at the end of the day. And once we've done that, we actually have the interview. Once the interview is completed, well, let's say before that, the interview is also very informed by all the work that you've done before. So we set up the interview, we structure and design the interview based on what all the information we've done. Once we've completed that, we then do reference checks.
Okay.
And we call it threat of reference checks, right? And the threat, we're not threatening anybody, but through the interview, when someone makes a very big statement about what they can do and what they achieve and what this and what that, we say, what was the first name of your manager or supervisor when you were there? Jill. Okay. Would Jill support what you've just said? Absolutely. Could we use her as one of your references? Sure. A playing candidates will always say sure. B playing candidates just, I don't know if she's still there and blah, 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 blah. C playing candidates saying, well, I don't know. I'd have to see if she's around, right? So once we get through the interview process, we actually interview the reference, right? And it's not just asking simple questions, it's interviewing them, just like we did with the candidate. Bruce said this. Can you corroborate that? Can you tell us if you experience the same thing? Long story short, once the references or reference checks, and we only do one or two, and we only focus on supervisors. Other than that, we're not wasting our time, right?
Because you don't want the peer review.
No.
Not interested.
Not at all, right? And once we've done with that, we've got this, I'm sure you can imagine, we've got all these data points, right, surrounding us to make a final decision. We sit with you as the client or hiring manager, and we say, based upon all these factors that we've collected, including the references, these are your options. And that's where the 95% kicks in. It's a little bit longer of a process, but man alive, it's awesome. And the final piece to the puzzle is that once you've made your decision of who your candidate's going to be, we obviously facilitate that whole process for you, but we build a custom onboarding program to ensure that whoever you hire, between you, the hiring manager, your new employee, and ourselves, we are going to be there for the next couple of months with you. We're not charging anything more. Sit with you and the new employee, and we're ensuring that the connection is there. We're ensuring that the onboarding program is designed to ensure that the employee becomes productive ASAP, but that they are retained, they stay.
And they're happy.
And they're happy.
Because employees don't leave their jobs. So this is something I've learned from you over the years. They don't leave jobs, they leave managers.
They leave relationships.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because if the relationship and the components within the company and who they're interacting with every day is problematic or stressful for them, then they're not going to stay because
100%.
It's too draining on them, right? And then they go home tired.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about the skill of the job. It's about those relational things. And that's what onboarding is really about, not just to get them to the point of functionally doing the job we need them to do, but also interacting within our team and our culture effectively.
100%.
We've seen the difference in our clients for sure. I mean, I was reluctant back in the day. I saw, even using half the system, that it works and it works well. Our clients now are seeing huge benefits, even using part of the system. The ones that use the whole system, it works, and it works like every time.
Absolutely it does. Yeah.
Regardless of whether it's an entry level or an executive position. So is there anything else that you want to add that you think would be pertinent to somebody that's looking at hiring for a role in their company, and something that they should know or think about before we wrap up today?
I'll say this, and it's pretty provocative. Hire slow, fire fast.
Tell us what you mean by that.
Absolutely. Don't rush with your hiring. It is incredibly expensive and very damaging if it doesn't go well in your business. If you are a small business, please take the time to do it. Fire fast, meaning, excuse me, hiring is not bulletproof, regardless of system, regardless of process. It's still a social science, and social science is not hard, right? So there are going to be bumps along the way.
Right.
And when those inevitable bumps come along, of course, do whatever you can to support your employees, to try and see if you can make it work. Learn from the mistakes that you made when hiring. You might even bonus out and keep that employee, and that's a heck of an achievement for any leader. But if it's not working, don't sit on it. I have seen, and a recent client that sat on a hire that didn't work, and they stayed. The amount of unnecessary damage that did to the business was just not acceptable. Fire fast when you need to, but hire slow.
The costs are incredible.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, if you want more information or you want to connect with us, or if this makes sense and you want to do it differently, go to forworkplaces.com and fill out the form. We'll get in touch with you. Again, that's the number 4workplaces.com. We'd love to talk to you, and you can ask us any questions you have. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.